you liked my little introduction there with the exploding quadcopter. This is a really jam-packed episode. I got a lot of stuff to cover, and I should really be doing this in about 2 or 3 videos, but I just don't have the time, and I've been really wanting to get this video out, talking about the HoryzonHD FPV cam, the version 3. Really great camera. So that's going to be the highlight of this episode here. Now I also have, in my hot little hands here, the, well, it's the Turnigy 9XR, which a lot of people have been talking about. I haven't really had a chance to mess around with this a whole lot, but so I'll give you some of my just very initial feedback on this one. And plugged into the back here though, and I've already started to modify it, is the RMILEC UHF long-range transmitter system, and that's also from Foxtech. So I'll be talking about that just a little bit too. But let's start off with the cameras. Now, if you guys have been flying RC for a while, a couple years, been in this hobby, you will probably remember little cameras like this gum stick camera. I guess they call it that because it looks like a little pack of gum that you would have in your pocket. Now these, I remember when they came out, I was super excited to get something like this on my plane. Just anything we could get up in the air that was lightweight and had a decent camera on it was so fun to record some video. But these days, with all the camera options we have, these things are pretty much a joke. I think at one point they were charging about 80 bucks for these things, and now you can probably get them for $25 on eBay. So here's all the different ones I've tried. I've got my typical little point and shoot camera. I tried those a long time ago. Then I've got this Insignia camera here, which was actually not too bad because I could actually fold this screen in, so it was fairly aerodynamic. And it shot pretty nice video, and it also did live video feed output. Then I had this replay here. If you guys remember, I had that video with the different bullet cameras, these nice round ones, and these were nice and streamlined. This one I think does a good job, nice video quality, but the main problem is the only output is HDMI video output, and right now we don't have the ability to connect our FPV transmitters with HDMI, so this one was kind of out. And of course I also have my just typical FPV cameras. Now these don't record anything, they just broadcast, or they output a video signal that then goes to your video transmitter. And here's another one here. Now these ones run about $100, and that's with the regular lens. Then you got to spend another $10, $12 to get a nice wide angle lens. So what if there was a way we could put all the features that we're looking for in these kind of cameras, put them into one? And that's what I've been searching for a long time. Well, it is finally here. Now this is version 3 from Foxtech. It's the HoryzonHD FPV camera. And this is version 3, and I think this would be definitely one worth purchasing. The version 2 was a good camera, but it had a couple little issues with it that Fu at Foxtech has fixed. Okay, so that's me on the left there, flying the quadcopter with my Fat Shark goggles, doing some FPV. And then to my left is Don, another popular YouTube guy. His YouTube channel is DHDS Racer, and I'll put a link to his channel and his website underneath this video here. And anyway, he is like the go-to guy if you want to learn how to set up multi-rotors. You know, tricopters, quadcopters, and above. So he's actually piloting that aquacopter that you see hovering in front of the screen right there. Now Don and I were fortunate enough to have just a great day that we picked to go up here and fly off of Treasure Island in the San Francisco Bay Area. So there you can see is San Francisco back there. Just a beautiful day. And I mean, look at how clear this camera is. You can see all the way over to the Golden Gate there. There's Alcatraz. There's Angel Island over there. Of course, it was just so nice with this really calm day, bright blue sky, and ooh la la, there's the sculpture right there that we were flying around. I didn't know that thing was there. I just, I said, hey Don, let's go out here and fly. And I saw the sculpture out here and I said, hey, we got to fly in front of this thing because it's just going to provide a really great backdrop for giving a good contrast for you know, how the camera handles light and also focusing and all sorts of stuff. Oh yeah, and here we go. Now, for those of you who are wondering how an aquacopter frame can handle some aerobatics, check it out. Don is doing some nice flips here with the aquacopter, and he said it handled it quite nicely. And we also had the chance to have him fly a plane around. Now this clip right here, I believe, is shot in 720p, and as you can see, it's not quite as good. It's still pretty good, but the earlier clips were shot in 1080p. There's a couple different types of 1080p you can shoot in.
like regular quality and then high quality 1080. So anyway, this camera just does a great job. But again, I'm pretty sure that this was done in 720p. All right, now here's another clip. I was out flying with my buddy who owns Quadcopters, and we were having some fun. We actually blew up one of his frames just to see what would happen. And here we go. I'm about to fly in here and get close to the blast zone. Right there on the bottom is where the quadcopter was. You can see that it's completely gone now. So anyway, got some property up here that was really fun to fly around, and also was another way to kind of test out the HoryzonHD FPV version 3 camera here. And so you can see there's a mountain range off in the distance. And again, just notice like the super, I love flying over water here. It just looks like a mirror, and you can tell the camera has great clarity. And in some of these shots you can tell that right here I'm facing away from the sun, and I think in a little bit I'm going to start facing towards the sun. Yeah, okay, well, I almost did there. But this camera does a great job handling the white balance. As I spin around here and I start to face the sun, there we go. You can see that it gets a little bright, if you will, and you can kind of see those little the lens flare. But just does a great job, you know, capturing what you're seeing and you know, flying into the sun. It just does not affect the camera. And here we go. This is always fun, flying around the tops of trees. I guess we're doing a little practice for some power line inspection. Now coming up is some footage of a lower light levels on a rainy day, and again you can see it does a good job. That's just a water droplet on the lens, nothing wrong with the camera. And here are some stills taken from the camera as well. And again, this was done using that little switch on my transmitter so I could take stills while I was flying. Now something that doesn't really come across here is there was kind of like a light, like a grid pattern on some of the images, and I'm not quite sure what that was. I guess once I ran it through video editing, it looked okay. But again, the raw files seem to have some sort of artifact on there. So anyway, just something to be aware of.
So now I'm going to go a little bit more in depth to this camera and why I think it's definitely a good buy. I'm going to talk about what I like about the camera, then I'm going to talk about my gripes, what I don't really like about it, and then what I'm hoping for in the version 4 fixes, just to make it the ultimate perfect camera. This thing will shoot in 1080, 720, different aspect ratios. Of course, like I mentioned earlier, for video output, it will do HDMI video output. You know, for when you get home, you want to watch it on your TV. It will do the composite video output, which is how we're going to hook it up to our FPV camera. This thing also comes with a trigger that you can hook up on one of your auxiliary switches on your transmitter, so that remotely you can start and stop video recording or taking pictures while in flight. And that is a really cool feature we're going to talk about a little later. Now the camera just by itself, which doesn't include a battery, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, but the camera just by itself weighs under 100 grams. I think it's around 90 grams. Now I've already mounted it to a little foam board tray here, and this is what I use to put it on any aircraft that I'm flying with it, so that adds a little bit of weight to it. But all in all, pretty lightweight camera. This replay right here is around, I think it's also around 90 grams. So pretty comparable, although this one has the battery inside already. Although this one has a lot more features that were designed specifically for FPV. And that's one of the things that I really like about this camera. Okay, all these other cameras that I talked to before, aside from these standalone FPV cameras that don't record, this one actually has features on it that were designed specifically for RC flying. You know, the GoPro is a good camera for recording, but again, it's not designed specifically for FPV. And one of my big gripes with it, of course, is that it's not very streamlined for our RC planes. Okay, you have a big profile about half of this flying through the air. Another really cool thing about this camera right now is only $160. I think that is a great deal. When you look at the kind of video quality that this thing has and the price that it is and all the features, for $160, I think it's almost a steal. Compare that to the other high definition video camera options that you have out there, like the Replay or the Contour or the GoPro. Compare that to their prices. This thing is about half of their cost. Take a little bit of a closer look at the actual camera here, if I can kind of take it out of my little foam board mount. So here's the camera itself, and as you see, it's actually on a fairly long ribbon, so that you can mount this camera in a lot of different locations on your plane. Now, this might be sort of a negative to you. You know, if you're looking for a unit that's just like all in one pod, you can just slap it right on your plane and go. That might be a little bit of a negative. So it kind of depends on how you look at the camera. I happen to think that it's a positive. Now, if you look, I've got it all bundled up in one little package right here, but who knows, in the future, I might have a plane where I want to have the camera maybe a little over here on the wing or farther out, away. And one thing to think about is on our small RC aircraft that we're flying with these things, center of gravity is very important. Having the ability to adjust where we put the weight on our plane is actually very desirable. So again, if you have a camera where it's just one unit like this and you can only put that camera wherever it needs to be mounted on the plane, sometimes balancing is an issue. So with this, I can have the camera way out on the nose of the plane. I can have the sort of the brain unit of the camera device farther back, and then from there I could even extend where I plug my battery even farther from there. So many options with this camera. Right here we've got the HDMI output. This little cable bundle has your power and video leads, and right here we also have another USB for, it's also another video output. And then on this side we have the little slot for your SD card to go into. So of course this thing has a option for a removable SD card slot, which is very cool. Also, talking about video quality with this camera, I was very impressed with how quickly it would adjust the white balance and how well it did when I was flying in very bright conditions. So if I'm flying so that this camera is pointed almost directly at the sun, it does a great job of making the sun dark and making everything else light so that I can still see while I'm flying. And at the same time, as I'm flying around and now I've got my back to the sun, it very quickly adjusts so that I never have any problems seeing through it. And on that note too, another thing that this camera comes with is a nice wide-angle lens. Some cameras have a lens that's too wide. I think the GoPros, sometimes their fisheye lens is a little bit too big and it distorts the image. When you get these cameras here, again, these cost around $100, these FPV cameras. Their lens often is only like a very narrow degree, so you got to spend more money to get a wide-angle lens. So again, Fu over at Foxtech really did his research and thought of all the things that we as FPV flyers, video recorders are going to want, and he just came right out of the gates with a nice wide-angle lens. Okay, another cool thing about this camera. This camera will run on anything from 3.5 to 22 volts. Now, there's a little bit of a catch here, okay? The camera itself only wants to run on 3.5 to 4.5 volts, okay? So, how do we get that wider voltage range? Okay, so we've got a little step-down thing right here. So this actually enables you to run even a wider range of volts, up to 22 volts. When I'm running this FPV camera, I just use a little 950 milliamp hour 3-cell battery, and this thing will run this camera for a long time. But a really cool feature of this camera is if you wanted to, and it comes with the cables to do this, you could actually plug this directly into your receiver and get power from your receiver. Now the only thing I caution on that is the one time that I did try that, I was feeling the BEC of my speed controller, and it was getting a little warmer than I would have liked. So you can do that. It is an option to run this camera through your receiver, but again, make sure that your BEC has enough output so that it's not going to hurt your BEC, because the last thing you want to do is burn out your ESC while you're flying around and have your plane go down with all your nice FPV equipment on. Another cool thing that I tested out with this is it will continue to stay on even when the SD card fills up. And that's something that I'm not sure of what happens with some of these other cameras. I think when they fill up, they probably are going to only have, I don't know, another minute or so before they decide like, oh, my card is full up, I have nothing else to do, so I'm going to go ahead and shut off. This one will stay running as long as your battery has enough power to run it. And another cool thing, this camera, while you're flying FPV, will actually display it's got a little battery meter on it, so you know that this battery, or the battery you have powering it, you know if you've got enough juice left in it. And since I also power my FPV transmitter off of this same battery, that's sort of a dual purpose. So I get to monitor the battery for all my FPV gear through this camera. Okay, and last on the list of really cool features, I kind of saved one of the good things for last, is that this camera comes with a little video trigger, if you will. So what you do is on your receiver you'll have another one of your auxiliary channels, and you can hook it up however you want. I had it hooked up on a switch. I also had it hooked up on a rotating dial. And so what this enables you to do is to start and stop video recording while in flight. And if you have a 3-way switch on your transmitter, you could have it set up so that one direction starts and stops video, and the other direction starts and stops taking pictures. So I think that is a really, really cool thing, because depending on the size of SD cards you have, you might not have a lot of memory space, so you don't want to be recording the whole flight. You might not want to be recording the time while your plane's on the ground and you're plugging in your flight battery and all that stuff. So this gives you the ability to take off, find what you really want to take a video or a picture of, flick a switch on your transmitter and take a picture or start taking a video, and then when you're done, turn it off. Okay, so a lot of cool stuff with this camera. Now I'm going to go into my shorter list of little gripes with it. When I was using the feature where I can actually take pictures with the camera, the pictures seem to be a little bit grainy. They seem to sort of have some sort of crosshatch pattern on them, and I'm not quite sure what that was. But I will say this, it almost doesn't matter, because when I'm editing my video, if I want to take a snapshot from something that I saw while I was flying, I just take a screenshot of the video. The video is so clear and crisp that it looks just about as good as if you were to take a picture while you were in flight. Another thing that I'm not quite so sure that I like is that this camera, if you've got an SD card installed in it, as soon as you turn the power on or as soon as you plug it into power, it just starts recording immediately. And I'm not quite so sure that I like that. Then again, as I discussed a little bit before, you can see that there's a little bit of a mess of wires here. Now I've kind of bundled them up nicely. So this could be a bad thing if you don't want to have all the hassle of this. But then again, on the other side of the token, this gives you a lot of flexibility for mounting your battery, your camera, the main camera unit here, wherever you want to on the plane. It gives you more options for where you can mount stuff. Now, one of the bigger complaints with the version 2 of this camera is that the buttons for controlling the menus and different settings was on the back of the main body unit here, and when you would press the buttons, A, the kind of style of buttons they didn't really give good feedback whether or not you were pressing them or not, and B, you would actually have to squeeze the LCD screen to put pressure on the buttons. So Fu did a great job. He fixed that. He's got a nicer style button, and he's put them on the side of the unit here, so you can push and squeeze them all day long, and you're not going to hurt the LCD screen. Now the only thing I'll say is that for some reason, maybe it's just this one button, but my video start and stop record button was a little bit finicky. I sort of had to think good thoughts, if you will, when I pushed that button, to make sure that it would actually start and stop the recording. Long story short, sometimes it wasn't responsive. Now another complaint I've seen that some other people have with this is that there isn't really like a nice mount for this camera. As you can see, I've already hot glued it into my little camera mount, and so I don't really have a problem that there was no flat surface, if you will, for this camera to be mounted on, because I always do my own kind of custom mounting anyway. But with that said, when I glued this in here, I could have sworn that I was watching the LCD screen and I had this thing oriented so that it had the top on the top of the video. But apparently I didn't have it set right, and it was upside down. Now the software, when you're going through the different menus, it does actually say it's got the ability to rotate your camera view. So I tried that, and for whatever reason it didn't seem like it was working. So either I was not doing it right, or maybe the software had a little glitch. So that's something that I would like to see fixed. But again, maybe it's something I was doing wrong. Another thing that was fixed or made better with the version 3 that I have here is that if you want to use this camera system with the long-range UHF transmitter system, there is a little bit of RF noise that this whole camera system puts out. So Fu put a sort of a more metal shielded body or housing around the camera, as well as on this ribbon right here of data that goes from the camera to the main body. He also has like a metal shielded kind of ribbon tape now. And that actually did help reduce the amount of RF noise that gets output from this camera. In fact, go check out RC Model Reviews, I believe, or XJet might be the name of the YouTube channel. The guy's name is Bruce. Does just phenomenal tech-related reviews on products. He has one of these cameras. He actually has some sort of scope or analyzer that can analyze radio frequency output from different devices. And he did do a test that proved that this actually does reduce the amount of RF noise. It helps a lot, but it doesn't make it perfect, as is something I'll talk about a little bit later with the testing that I did. And my very last gripe with this, and it's something that I sort of saw in the version 2, is that occasionally, and it only happened on one of the video files, but it did happen with this, when I go back home and I'm watching one of the videos, there seems to be some sort of like twitchiness or artifact in the video as I'm playing it back. And that doesn't make for a nice video. However, as soon as I run it through my editing process, it goes away. So again, I'm not really planning on watching raw videos that much. I always plan on doing a little bit of editing. And again, it only happened on one of the files, and I shot a whole bunch of different clips on here. Okay, so now I'll just talk a little bit about things that I would like to see kind of fixed. And again, if this is because I have bad equipment, I'm not sure. But and first and foremost would be that the little switch. It's a little electronic device that plugs into your receiver, and then it also plugs into your version 3 camera here. and it's a thing that kind of listens for the input of your switches to tell it if it's going to start taking video or start taking pictures. Now mine worked for the first couple times, and then when I was out flying it kind of stopped working. I messed with it a whole bunch, and as far as I could figure out, whatever circuitry in it that needs to do the calibration kind of got messed up, because every time I turned my camera back on I would have to kind of try to recalibrate the switches, but it was never perfect. So basically with my 3-position switch, it's supposed to work where I move it one position, starts the video, and then stops it, and then the other position is going to start or stop taking pictures. Well, it stopped working after a while, and even when I put it on one of these rotating knobs so that I could basically have an infinite control of the value, if you will, that I was setting to the little device, it still was having problems. So unfortunately I just basically ended up not using it. I would just plug in my battery, start recording video, go do my flight, come back down, land, and turn it off. And you know, for the most part that's what most people are going to do anyway. And like I said, since it seems to be that I can get better picture quality if I just take a screenshot from my video versus actually trying to take pictures, it's kind of a moot point for me anyway. But I will say this, if that was fixed, or if mine was working properly, I would really like that. And then finally, it would be nice if we could get this camera so that it was basically producing as little RF noise as possible. So I don't know, maybe doubling up on the shielding might help. But that brings me to my next thing here. I've already started to hack it up, but what's behind this right here, I'm going to take off my tape so you can see this a little better. But right here I have the RMILEC UHF video system. And as you'll notice, this basically, it plugs right into the back of the 9XR, so there's no more kind of modification you're doing. What I'm trying to do here is put a little extra cooling on it. I did notice that when I was running this RMILEC, it got a little bit warm. It wasn't like bad hot, but I get real picky when I have heat on my electronics, so I do anything that I can to keep them as cool as possible. So that's what I'm doing here. But I did a test. So I took my HoryzonHD FPV version 3, I put it on my plane with the FPV video transmitter turned on, and I took my radio, and I was in one car, and I had my buddy with my plane wait at the top of a hill, and I got about a mile away. So the RMILEC has a high and low power. So I got about a mile away, and again, remember that yes, we're in cars, but I did stick this way out of my sunroof when I pulled to the side of the road to do a test, and got about a mile of range transmitting with this UHF and with this camera turned on. When it started to lose signal, I went ahead and went to the higher power setting, and it got me another, I don't know, 1/8 of a mile or so. Now, these results, again, were on the ground. Probably get a lot greater distance if you're actually trying to communicate with your plane that's in the sky, as long as you just have that nice, long line of sight view. So what I did is I turned my camera off while I was still on low power on my UHF system, and instantly it got connection back. So that did prove to me that this is still putting out some RF noise that is kind of conflicting with my radio system. 2.4 gigahertz that everyone else is using might not be affected quite as much. I'm going to talk about the 9XR really quick, because again, I haven't really spent hardly any time. All I did was I set up 2 channels on it so that I could do a little test with my FPV version 3 camera here. So it is a really nice transmitter in terms of the amount of features that it has, or I should say it's got a great value. I've messed with several different transmitters over the years, so I have a pretty good understanding of the basic menu systems on different manufacturers, and I have to say this is probably the one that's been the hardest to use so far, at least without a manual. Luckily, there is a PDF manual. I'm going to put a link to the PDF manual under this video so that you guys can find it. And it's pretty cool. It was open source, so you know, if you can spare some change to donate to the guy that wrote up the manual, that'd be really cool. Hopefully I can help him out by just putting that link on my videos and spreading his information out there a little bit more. Again, for $160, I absolutely don't think you can beat the flexibility, the video quality, and just everything that goes with this camera. Definitely a recommended purchase.